Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So I hope you are all keeping well, staying safe and are finding ways to keep yourself occupied during this lockdown period. I thought I would do a video that has been requested by a few people today. Might not be for everyone, but as you can tell by the title, I am going to be talking about doing geography at UEA. So after I posted my last video about everything you need to know at UEA, I mentioned that I'm doing geography there and I'm in my second year at the moment, going into, well, second year's practically finished now, and I had a few people comment saying that they were also going there to do geography and if I could give them some more information about geography specifically. So this might not be for the vast majority of you, but I thought I'd film this video anyway because when I was looking at unis like a couple years ago, I probably would have found something like this really helpful, and I don't think that there's many videos out there that are course specific. This video is also very relevant to people doing environmental science and geography BA and geology, climate change. A lot of it is pretty much the same. We all pretty much did the same modules in first year, so I'm just going to be talking about first year today because first year most stuff is compulsory, you don't really get a lot of options, whereas second and third year is all optional pretty much, so there's no point in me talking about that because the likelihood of somebody doing exactly the same modules as me is quite unlikely. So yeah, I also am using my new ring light today. If you didn't know, I got a ring light and I actually love it. Like, look at the difference it makes. Amazing. I feel like you can't really tell that much actually, but in my eyes it makes a big difference, so I'm happy. So yeah, let's get into the video. So the first thing to note is that it can vary year to year exactly what the course is going to be like. So I did BSc geography, there is also BA geography, which is more human-y. BSc is more of the physical side of it, and there is also environmental science, which is a big course at UEA. Most people that I am in lessons with and lectures with are on environmental science. There's not actually very many of us doing geography, but it's pretty much the same course, to be honest. We did one module that was different in first year, and we get the choice of exactly the same modules in second and third year if you're on environmental science. BA, you get slightly less choice in second and third year, and you get more of like the dev kind of choices, but I liked BSc because it was like very much in the middle of the two. So I get the choice of environmental science courses and the choice of BA geography and international development courses. So that's why I chose BSc, because it is slightly more flexible. But in first year, everybody does the same. We are all part of the School of Environmental Sciences, otherwise known as EM. So anyone on geology, environmental science, climate change, BA geography, BSc geography, we do 5 out of 6 of the same modules. So there is only one module different on each of the courses. So I will tell you what those modules are when we get to those. But yeah, it's pretty much all the same in first year, which is quite nice because you get to mix with a lot of different people. But yeah, your individual course may vary slightly year to year. I've just had a look on the course profile online on the UEA website, and the modules seem to be the same going into 2020 of that academic year. But if you're watching this in the future, then it might be worth just having a little look to see if the modules are different, and also the way you're assessed might differ slightly. I can't imagine it would change too much, but that is something to just look out for as well. And also I just wanted to explain the difference between formative and summative assessment, because if you're like me, a couple of years ago I had no idea what these two terms meant. But formative work is basically like homework. It's stuff that the lecturers want you to hand in, pieces of work that they want you to do and they expect you to do, but they're not going to chase you up for it, and if you don't hand it in, then that's your problem at the end of the day. The mark you get on a formative doesn't count towards anything, it's just for your own personal, like for you to work on that and learn from the feedback going forward into the summative. Formatives, I would say it's worth doing because you get some really helpful feedback that you can then use on your summatives, and summatives do count towards your final grade. In first year, for me, nothing counts towards my final like degree, I guess, but it's still definitely worth doing, and you have summatives all throughout your degree course. So these are marked and the grade does count. These can be in the form of coursework or exams. Yeah, that just to clear that up. So moving on to the modules I did. In my first semester I did 5 modules, and in my second semester I did 4 modules. Some of my modules were just a semester long and some of them were a year long, but you end up doing 6 modules over the course of the whole year. This also is very different to your second or third year, so you don't have any modules in, well, I don't have any modules in my second year that are the whole year long. I have 3 in semester 1 and 3 in semester 2, so the way that it is split up is very different as well. It doesn't really make a difference to me, to be honest. I did find that I had a lot more contact hours in first year. I think I had a total of like 23 contact hours a week. It felt like a lot, which doesn't sound like a lot. You know, people that have full-time jobs are in like, I don't know, 30 hours a week or whatever, but compared to the people in my flat who were doing like English and stuff and they only had 6 contact hours a week, it felt like a lot to me. But you definitely get used to it, and it's definitely manageable to keep up with all your work. And I also did a couple of clubs and societies, so if you just organise your time, then you definitely can do everything. So the first module I'm going to talk about is called Dynamic Planet, and this is the one that BA geographers did not do because Dynamic Planet was very sciencey, I guess. So this was for ESC geography, environmental science and geology. There might be a few other courses as well, I'm not 100% sure. And this was a semester 1 module, so we just did it from September until December, and this was very kind of looking at rocks and stuff, so it was a lot of identifying rocks. We did a bit on volcanoes, a bit on fluidity and flow and stuff like that. It was quite physicsy and chemistry, so I actually found this module really quite challenging. But if you have a physics and chemistry background, if you did it at A-level, then you will have no problem with this at all. But to be honest, even I didn't have a background in anything like that, and I still ended up getting a 2-1 at the end of the year. So if you just put a bit of work in, then you'll be fine with this module. This was assessed 33% on a piece of coursework, and the coursework was based on a practical session. So the whole module involved a 3-hour practical a week and then 2 lectures a week. So in the practical sessions we had a period of time where we'd carry out experiments, and then our summative assessment, the 33% one, we basically had to write an abstract for one of the experiments and we could choose. I actually didn't do very well on this assessment at all. I got a 2-2 I think, which isn't awful, but for it was my first grade, so I was getting really worried, but it was absolutely fine. You know, if you get 1 bad grade, it really doesn't matter that much, and I think at the time I freaked out way too much. And then the other 67% is assessed from a 2-hour exam in the summer period, but you will do a formative test of this before Christmas as well, so I would say definitely do that because it just gets you like used to the exam and the kinds of questions that they're going to ask you. If you revise enough, you'll be absolutely fine for this. It's quite short answer questions from what I remember. It's not essay based or anything like that, so it's kind of just like learn the facts and you'll be fine. The next module was Global Environmental Challenges, and this was also a semester 1 module. This was definitely my favourite module in first year. It was very broad and it was kind of similar to the way you learn in A-levels. So rather than learning stuff in a lot of detail, you kind of just learn about a lot of different things but in not too much detail, so you just get a broad overview of loads of different topics, loads of different things that I hadn't done before. But we also did things like volcanoes, flooding, storm surges, tsunamis, earthquakes, so kind of the stuff that you did at A-level, but then we also did other stuff. I learned about geoengineering, ocean acidification, a lot more about climate change, so it was a massive range. And at the start of this module we also had some skills-based practicals, so definitely go to those. And we learned about referencing, how to write a good essay, just basically how you're assessed at uni varies from A-level, because it is very different how you are marked. I feel like I'm talking really quickly. I hope you can all keep up, but there's a lot of information that I kind of wanted to give you, and I don't want this video to be super long, so I will try and slow down a little bit. But yeah, I apologise for that. And this module is assessed by 100% coursework. So the first coursework is 33%, and that is from a 500-word reflective report. So we got put into groups and we had to work together to produce a presentation, and then that was formative, so that didn't count towards our mark, the actual presentation. But the summative after that was basically writing about how we worked as a group, reflecting on what we would have done differently, how the presentation went. Pretty easy, to be honest, so that was absolutely fine. And then the second bit of coursework was the remainder of the module, so that was 67% of the module, and that was a 2,500 word essay, which at the time terrified me, but now that is kind of the norm. So yeah, don't freak out by it. You think it's a lot of words when you first go to do it, but actually it's really not. It's about 4 pages, and we had to basically pick a topic of something that we found interesting throughout the module. So I decided to do mine on geoengineering because I found that super interesting, and we basically just came up with our own title and had to write an essay about that. And you also have a meeting with your advisor just to talk through it, make sure you're on the right track, so that was really helpful as well. So those were both of the semester 1 only modules. Then moving on to the year long modules, we had a maths module, and this was kind of optional. Basically, on any of the courses within the environmental science school, everyone has to do some form of maths, and you get a choice of 3 different modules. So it's kind of like goes up in stages, so there's 3 different levels of difficulty, I guess. I chose the middle one because they recommended that for people who have done AS maths or got an A or A star at GCSE, and I got an A star at GCSE, and I also did it for AS. I only got a C, but I still did it, I still passed it. So the middle one I found it so difficult, I'm not going to lie. My camera just overheated, but we are back. So yeah, the maths module is also made up of 2 different parts. So you have a maths, like strict like algebra, that kind of maths part, and then you have a statistics part. So I'll quickly talk about the statistics. The stats part is the same regardless of which level of maths you choose. Stats stays the same, and the statistics component is worth 40%, the maths is 60%. Both are done in an exam. The statistics is using a program called SPSS. I had never heard of this before, never used it before. I did find it really difficult to get used to be honest. And statistics, we had like 1 lecture a week, I think, and then a 3-hour practical a week, or a 2-hour practical, can't really remember. And we had like a task that we'd have to work through. And it did take some time getting used to using the program. You can download it on your own laptop, so I would really recommend doing that. And after every practical, I would go to the library and I'd just redo it, because I really struggled to get it into my head, like what we were actually doing. And the statistics exam is also open book. Sounds easy, doesn't make it easy. I learnt that the hard way. I failed my first formative. I think I got like 33% or something, which is the lowest I've ever got in an exam. So after the formative, that proper shook me up, because I was thinking, oh, it's open book, like I've got my notes, I'll be fine. So over Easter, I redid every single practical. I found that helped massively, and because it was open book, you could bring in all your notes. I made notes on absolutely everything. I took screenshots of when I was doing it at home, so I could write like, this number means this number means this, and in the end it was absolutely fine. I think stats was one of my highest marks in the end, so that just goes to prove if you put the effort in, you can do really well. And then the maths component is the one, as I was saying, it's different. So I did the middle one. This was called quantitative skills or something, I think. So this was the other 60%, and this was made up of a 2-hour exam in the exam period. So because I chose the middle one because if you choose the lower one, you get less of a choice of modules in your second and third year. In hindsight, didn't really matter because I think the modules that I'm doing now anyway, I didn't need my level of maths for, but it definitely has helped 100%, especially in meteorology, which is a second year module that I've done this year. There was a lot of maths in that, so doing that level of maths in first year has definitely helped. And just in general, I think that I remember stuff more now, and I don't know, I feel good for having pushed myself, because there was a time where I was thinking I really can't do this. I went to see my advisor and I was like, I genuinely think I'm going to fail. I cannot do this maths at all, and I stuck with it. It starts off a bit similar to A-level. You do a lot of indices, algebra, stuff like that, and then it moves on to integration and differentiation, which is something that I did in AS. So I'm so grateful for having done that AS level, because I think I would have struggled so much more if I hadn't. That being said, it is possible to do this level without having done AS. There was a lot of people that just did it GCSE and they did fine. The module is made up of practical sessions as well. So in maths, we had like 2-hour session where we just worked through a worksheet, and they have demonstrators there as well as a lecturer to help you go through any issues. There is also a maths help desk as well that can support you if you are struggling. I was also quite lucky because my boyfriend at the time was so good at maths, so I'm so grateful for him because I genuinely think I wouldn't have failed because I was a hard worker anyway, but it definitely helped having him there to, you know, help me if I got stuck. Also, for the maths that I did, if you do the middle one, you do have to buy a maths program. It's called My Maths Lab, but they'll tell you about all of that at the time. It is £30, but in the grand scheme of things, you use it for the whole year, and I would definitely say it is worth it. I feel like the homework that we got given on that helped so much, and you also get a couple of weekly homework questions to work through yourself as well, but again, that is formative, so it doesn't actually count. But I would say it is worth doing 100%. The next year-long module was research and field skills. So this is something that everyone in the ENVSCI did, and it's quite an easy module, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like everyone kind of saw this as a bit, you know, the relaxing module, and this is made up of 3 different courseworks, so each of them are about 33%, and again you have a mixture of lectures and practical sessions. It is a very broad module. It covers stuff like how to carry out like data analysis, research methods, how to write an abstract, collecting data, GIS, just general experiments as well, and it also involved a lot of group work. So the first assessment was 33%, and this was based on a water analysis experiment. So in one of the practical sessions we got into groups, carried out our water analysis, and then we were given a set of questions that we had to basically fill out. Yeah, that is it. It was quite easy because you have the set of questions, so you know what you need to write about, so I wouldn't stress at all about that. And then the second piece of coursework was on a heat loss project. So again, in groups we went out and collected data on heat loss of different buildings at UEA, and then we had to present it in the form of a poster. This was formative, but it helped with a summative later. But then the summative part of this was just basically writing up the report, writing what we found from our results and stuff like that. And then the final bit of coursework was carried out on a field trip. So in first year we had a compulsory field trip, so because it was compulsory there was no charge, and this was for the research and field skills module, and everyone in the School of ENV went on this trip. It was in Devon. I actually really enjoyed the trip. A lot of people didn't, but I love field trips. That's the whole point of doing like a degree like that, surely. So yeah, we went for a week, and you make your own way there. If you want me to do a video talking about the field trip, then I will, because there is a lot of information I could go into. But basically we did different activities, and then in the final 2 days we got into groups and came up with our own experiment, went out, collected the data, came back and presented all of the analysis and data collection and just graphs and stuff on a poster, and this poster was our summative assessment. I think everyone got pretty good marks for this. It was kind of just a bit of fun, to be honest. So the last year-long module that I did was called Geographical Perspectives, and this is the one that differed to the environmental scientist. Geographical Perspectives was just for BA Geography and BSc Geography. I would say it definitely was a more human-y kind of module. The human geographers tended to enjoy it a bit more. The first few weeks I didn't really enjoy it that much, to be honest. It was a lot of looking at old maps and stuff, and concepts that was quite confusing, a lot about Marxism and stuff. I don't really remember much about it, I'm not gonna lie, but all I remember was finding it really confusing at first, but then it picked up a lot in the second semester and I enjoyed it a lot more. So this was also assessed 100% by Coursework. We also did a bit about space and place, which is kind of A-level. If you did change in places, then it was kind of similar to that. And then in the second semester we did a bit more physical stuff, so a bit about fracking, climate change, risk, perception and stuff like that. So the first bit of coursework was in the first semester, and that was 30% of the module, and that was based on, we basically had to make loads of maps and stuff in a practical session using GIS. Then from those maps we were given 4 different questions and we had to answer those questions using the maps that we had made. So this wasn't that it was hard to stick to the word count. That's the hardest thing. I think it was like 1,000 words, 750 words. I've just got my notes here. So the hardest thing was sticking to the word count. The actual work wasn't too bad, but then the second piece of coursework was, oh my god, it was so draining. It was 3,000 words, which is the biggest bit of coursework I'd ever done before. I think it's still the biggest bit I've done. What I need to do my GIS that's due in like 3 weeks, but other than that, in first year it was my biggest piece of coursework, but it was split up over 3 different essays, so if you split it up it's not too bad. And there was basically 3 different sections, A, B, C, and then in each section there was a choice of questions and you picked 1 question from each section, if that makes sense. So you kind of got a choice as well, which made it quite nice because you could choose the one that was more tailored to you. So there was some more physical options, some more human options, and then we also had to give a presentation in the second semester. So we got put with someone else, we just did it in pairs, and you get given a topic and you have to do a presentation on it. That is formative, it's not, doesn't count towards the module, but then the topic that you were given helps you towards one of the essay questions. So I got given to do a presentation on fracking, so then because I had learnt so much information about fracking to do the presentation, I then chose one of my essay questions, the one that was based on fracking, to do. So that made it a lot easier to do that because I'd already done a presentation on it. So they do try and help you out a bit. This was also the only module that I had seminars for in first year, which was kind of weird to get used to because it's like nothing I'd ever done before. I'd gone from being in massive lecture theatres to just a little classroom, and it was kind of like I was back in sixth form, but it was quite nice, to be fair. You're just in smaller groups, it's more of a discussion environment, and I actually quite enjoy seminars, I think. And then the final module that I did is a semester 2 only module. It was called Sustainability and Biodiversity, and this was another optional module for me in first year. BSc geographers had a choice of the sustainability module or atmosphere and oceans, whereas environmental scientists had to do both. So that is where that differs. So as you can see, there's really not that much difference in both of the courses. So I chose to do sustainability and biodiversity, and this was obviously a lot about sustainability, climate change, ecology. There was obviously biodiversity, it's in the name, development, a bit about politics. So this was actually quite an interesting module, and this was assessed by 50/50 coursework exam. So the coursework was a 1,000 word essay about sustainable development, like what it means to you, how else it could be perceived, and then the other 50% was a 1 hour exam in the exam period. So that is it. I did 6 modules over the course of the whole year. Obviously some I enjoyed more than others, but overall I really enjoyed first year. If you have any other questions, then feel free to message me on Instagram or ask me in the comments down below. I know I've just thrown a lot of information at you and it's probably a lot to process, but I do hope this has been useful because I did have a few questions about doing a video like this. So I really hope that it has been helpful to those of you who asked for it, and I will see you on my next video. Bye!